Success with Google Ads today is about so much more than bids and budgets and keywords. Lead generation and e-commerce accounts alike need to take a holistic view of the customer in order to drive sustainable, scalable results. To that end, this is ppc.zone April 2025 Full Funnel Paid Ads. I'm your host, Jyll Saskin Gales. I use the pronouns she and her. I'm a Google Ads coach, ex-Googler, and the founder of the Inside Google Ads course, podcast, and book. I created ppc.zone in 2022 to elevate new perspectives and insights in our industry. Whether you're tuning in live, watching the replay on YouTube or LinkedIn, or listening in your podcast app, here's what you can expect. 3 stellar speakers will share their expertise in a 7-minute presentation each. Then we'll answer your questions in a live panel and wrap it all up in under an hour. Before we get started, I do need to exercise my host privileges to share that my first book, Inside Google Ads, Everything You Need to Know About Audience Targeting, just dropped on Amazon today. It is available internationally, and I am thrilled to share that as of today, I can add best-selling author to my title. So if you would like to check out my book on Amazon, you can search for Jyll Saskin Gales. Okay, first up in the zone today is the founder of Clicked.ca. During 7 years as a marketing director, he learned that real success starts with understanding a business's financial performance, not just what's happening inside the ad account. Today, he's here to tell us about the lead generation equation, optimizing the post-click experience. It is with great pleasure that I introduce you to John Greenhow. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Jyll, and congratulations on your book launch. I can't wait to read it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. As Jyll said, my name is John. In my 7 years as a marketing director and 5 years as a sales director, I was really focused on the question, is lead generation profitable? Today, I want to look at some ideas on how to work towards that. So we'll start by looking at assessing profitability by using the lead generation equation to define customer acquisition cost. We will look at how to approach optimizing the post-click customer experience in order to improve results and profitability. And we'll look at how to enrich reporting by including post-click conversions. Drum roll. This is the lead generation equation. Customer acquisition cost is equal to cost per click divided by your total post-click conversion rate. I know, not exactly Isaac Newton, but looking at campaigns through this equation is very clarifying, or at least I have found. So your total post-click conversion rate is how many clicks become customers. And that data needs to come from your website and your CRM. For our conversation, I'm going to break down the total post-click conversion rate into stages. A click becomes a lead by submitting a form. That's the on-page conversion rate. A lead becomes a deal. That's the lead conversion rate. And a deal becomes a customer, the win rate. Your CRM will report on these rates right into the box, but the trick is getting campaign-specific data into the CRM so that reports can be segmented by campaign or even by keyword. Lead generation viability hinges on the balance between customer acquisition cost and customer lifetime value. To be sustainable, your LTV must significantly exceed your CAC, ideally like a factor of 3 or more. That ratio specifically depends on a lot of things unique to the business: goals, profitability, the stage of the business. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing. The question is, with our current level of performance for customer acquisition cost, will lead generation drive value or drain resources? So let's take a look at this example here. $4.50 for a cost per click divided by 10% on-page conversion rate divided by 40% lead conversion rate divided by 30% win rate is $375 customer acquisition cost. Is that number profitable against customer lifetime value? If it's profitable, great. What can we do to improve profitability? If not, okay, what can we do to improve the performance so that we can scale lead generation? And should we focus our energy on pay-per-click, on the landing page, on lead management, on deal management? I think a common problem in marketing is trying to boil the ocean. Time and resources are limited. So this equation will help you determine the opportunities for optimization and track your efforts. This is ppc.zone, but I'm actually going to look at everything, opportunities that are available to you after the click. So not looking at PPC whatsoever. Let's start by looking at landing pages. This is the on-page conversion rate segment of the customer journey. Copywriting is a huge area for opportunity. I would say often done very, very poorly. If I can be blunt, nobody cares about your business. People care about their problems. People care about your ability to solve their problems. They care that you have a track record of working with people exactly like them experiencing the same problems. So the success of your landing page, and I would say of your brand in general, depends on the clarity with which the brand can communicate who it serves, what is their animating problem or desire, what is their desired goal or outcome, what is the process of getting from the problem to their goal when they work with you, how can they get started, and what do they get in return for getting started? Like, what's your offer? Be clear, be plain, be simple, be direct, but be honest, substantial, and sensitive. Talk to customers, like do actual customer interviews and get their own words, their own experiences in their own words. To supplement that, people are online and talking about the problem that you're trying to solve. Read your reviews, read your competitors' reviews, find the subreddit for your niche to figure out how people are discussing the problem that you are trying to solve. Let's take a look at lead response next. Lead response relates to your lead conversion rate. The benchmark here is 5 minutes from a lead entering into your system to the first call attempt, and a minimum of 6 call contact attempts before a lead is given up on. Calls, not emails, not automations, not text messages. If a lead response system isn't hitting these benchmarks, then there's a lot of opportunity to improve the lead conversion rate. Here is my suggestion. Test your own system as a secret shopper. Submit a lead form, start a stopwatch. How long does it take for you to get a phone call? What happens when you don't answer? How many attempts are made? Is there an attempt on SMS or email to follow up? Once you do hit those benchmarks, I'm really concerned with, is the system sturdy, and is it scalable? What happens on vacations, sick days, weekends, and evenings? What happens when lead volume doubles? I'm amazed by how many businesses are willing to spend and work towards spending 6 figures on ads, but they aren't willing to invest in the people and processes necessary to maximize that investment. Let's take a look at reporting and how this can be used to build trust and to share responsibility and accountability for the post-click experience. This is a sample report, just a snapshot of a sample report. Area 1 defines the threshold of performance that we're targeting for each stage of the customer journey. So the PPC, landing page, lead conversion rate, deal conversion rate. Underneath that are diagnostic metrics that I like to use so that we can start to determine if we fail to hit that threshold, why, what is happening, how can we get more clarity into the performance? And then area number 3 is integrating actual financial performance from the CRM in order to report very directly on financial performance. Let me summarize my key points here. Number 1 is audit the lead generation equation before you start running traffic to determine whether or not lead generation is viable, whether or not it will be profitable. Number 2, your copywriting needs to focus on your customers, not your brand. Number 3, audit your lead response system by being a secret shopper. Test how long it takes to get a contact attempt. And number 4 is use offline conversions in your reporting in order to build trust and shared responsibility across the entire customer journey with your clients. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you so much, John, for sharing your unique perspective and insights with us in the Zone. If you'd like to connect with John Greenhow, you can find him on LinkedIn. And if you have a question for John, go ahead and type it into the chat if you're watching this live on YouTube or LinkedIn right now, and we will get to your questions during the upcoming live panel. Next up in the Zone, this speaker is the CEO and co-founder of Alpine Analytics. She helps health, wellness, and fitness brands turn Google Ads into their most profitable paid acquisition channel. Today, she's sharing her perspective on full funnel strategy and managing your account like an investment portfolio. Please welcome Marjorie Vizethann.
Thank you, Jyll. It's great to be here. As Jyll mentioned, today I want to walk you all through how I approach a full funnel strategy in Google Ads. I like to think of a full funnel strategy like I'm managing an investment portfolio. And here's a quote of mine that I like to use. Managing your Google Ads account without a full funnel strategy is like investing your life savings in just one stock. You might get lucky, but you're not building long-term growth. And so what do I mean by this? If you think about an investment portfolio, you may have a variety of investments to help you meet your overall financial goals like real estate assets, bonds, stocks, etc. So you want to diversify your paid search portfolio in a similar way and have campaign types that ladder back to each stage of the funnel. So let's quickly review the stages of the funnel. At the top of the funnel, all we're trying to do is attract our potential customers, make them aware of our brand, products, and services. As we move down to the middle of the funnel, we want to educate them and further nurture them to the bottom of the funnel where we can convert them into a paying customer. To illustrate how this may play out in real life, let's go on a journey together. So, Nutrition Academy, which is a fictitious company, by the way, I made it up. But for the purpose of today's presentation, Nutrition Academy is a growing company. And what do? They offer nutrition coaching courses and certifications. So, if you want to become a nutrition coach, you take their course and then you're on your way. And they've hired us as their paid search agency. They've had some early success with Google Ads, and now their main objective is to scale profitably with Google Ads. So now let's meet Sarah Johnson. Sarah is an aspiring nutrition coach, and she's at the beginning of her journey. Sarah is our ideal customer. And we know a few things about Sarah by analyzing our existing customer data. So Sarah likes to watch meditation videos. In her free time, she attends virtual fitness classes, and she's a vegetarian, so she's always on the lookout for new plant-based recipes. So how are we going to guide Sarah from the scroll or the attract phase or beginning of her journey all the way through signing up for our program? So let's look at some campaign types that may make sense for each stage of this funnel. Google Discover at the beginning of her journey could make a lot of sense here. So if we go back to the example of her researching plant-based recipes, Google Discover is the personalized feed she sees on her phone based on her interests as well as her browsing behavior. So a Google Discover campaign, an ad that shows plant-based recipes and a blog about it on our website is a great way to attract her and familiarize her with our company. Now, moving into the middle stage of the funnel, we may serve her a YouTube video ad in the educate stage of the funnel. This is also a great opportunity to build trust with Sarah by using social proof. So the YouTube video may be of a recent graduate of our program, and they walk Sarah through frequently asked questions that they had before they chose our program. And then the landing page that Sarah clicks through after watching the video is also custom to that content, and it has a downloadable FAQ guide that Sarah can take with her as she continues on her journey to ultimately make a decision. So about a month later, Sarah is very close to making her final decision, but she has one final consideration. Sarah has a full-time job, and so it is important to her to have a flexible program that works with her schedule. So now she's on Google search and she is searching for nutrition programs that have that flexibility. So we're there again to serve her with a responsive search ad. And it has messaging that is very relevant to her. Become a nutrition coach. You can graduate in under 6 months, and you can do it with a flexible schedule. So now we have nurtured her and earned her trust throughout this entire process, and she is ready to convert, become a paying customer, and start her coaching journey. So we have successfully treated each funnel stage like an investment. And here is where some people go wrong. Oftentimes, you start your Google Ads account at the bottom of the funnel with search campaigns. That often makes a lot of sense. And your goal there might be enrollment revenue. Your KPI or key performance indicator is going to be ROAS. Oftentimes, when clients are ready to move up the funnel to the educate and attract phases, they will use these same goals and KPIs that work at the bottom funnel, and they just don't make sense as you move upward. So let's look at a couple examples of goals and KPIs that may make sense for that upper to mid funnel. So at the top of the funnel, an engaged visit. That could be scroll depth, if there's a video on the page, a video view, time on site, anything that indicates that that campaign has done its job by making Sarah aware of our brand and services. And then in the educate phase, as we go back to the video example with the FAQ download, now we can get her email address. We could do some email marketing if that made sense. And the KPI would be cost per download. So it's very important to align a measurement framework with your client before you start moving upward in the funnel. Otherwise, they could be frustrated that results don't look the same as what they're used to with the bottom of funnel campaign types. And then bringing it full circle, Sarah has now gone through the program. She's a happy recent graduate. She's a certified nutrition coach. And now she's giving her own testimonial. And she says, every ad felt like it was written for me. When I was ready to decide, there was no question. I already trusted them. So this is the best outcome that we could have hoped for. And this is how I think about a successful full funnel strategy in Google Ads. Thanks for coming on this journey with me.
Thank you so much, Marjorie, for sharing your unique perspective and insights with us in the zone. If you'd like to connect with Marjorie Vizethann, you can find her on LinkedIn. And if you have a question for Marjorie, go ahead and type it into the chat if you're watching live on YouTube or LinkedIn right now, and we'll get to your questions during the upcoming live panel. Our final speaker in the zone today has been called an international man of mystery and a digital nomad by friends. He and his team at Take Some Risk help e-com, D2C, and retail brands grow through strategy, PPC marketing, and data. We're about to hear him explain how you're lighting your money on fire and you don't even know it. My friend and fellow Torontonian, Duane Brown, is here to talk about Google Ads audits for e-com. Please welcome Duane.
Awesome. Thanks for the introduction. Also, my other two fellow speakers, you both did amazing jobs. Truth bombs all the way through. Now, I'm going to talk about Google Ads, e-com audits, and how people are wasting money, because obviously it's only April of 2025. We've still got 8.5 months of the year left, and so there's lots of time to make your accounts more profitable, make more money, and get ready for summer or Black Friday, whenever your peak season is, assuming Q1 wasn't your peak season. Cool. So we'll talk about conversion tracking, search term report. We're talking about SKU breakdown a little bit, and then I've got some tips and tricks at the end. And hopefully I do not talk too fast with my lovely Canadian accent. All right. So conversion tracking. I think conversion tracking is kind of like that big vault from the DuckTales TV show as a kid, where Scrooge McDuck sort of dives in. The reason that is, like, gold is valuable. You can sell gold anytime. It's probably the most valuable currency next to the US dollar. Well, your conversion tracking is like gold. You can sell it to people and it has value. And there's two ways I see people make mistakes when it comes to conversion tracking. One, I think we've all seen it, is where people have a conversion tracking by Google tag and GA4, or like a Shopify app and GA4, and then they start to double count conversions. And so they think that 5 ROAS in their account is great, but their 5 ROAS is probably really a 2 or 2.5, because every time somebody purchases, they count it twice in Google. And so making sure you don't have double conversion tracking happen is really important, because you'll be shocked how many times we see it in accounts that we audit and people are both shocked and surprised that it happened, whether it's in-house people, other agencies, contractors, freelancers, or whatever bucket you sit in and the role that you have. The other thing we see, and not as often, is that some people will sometimes put a default value in the conversion value. So let's say they put a default value of like $100. And so even though maybe products you sell on your site range from $10 to $500, every time somebody converts, Google signals that conversion as $100. And so if somebody buys a $10 hat, Google says that conversion value is 100. Now, obviously, if somebody bought a $500 product, you don't want them to signal it's 100, but it's way worse when the product is less than $100 and Google thinks it's a $100 purchase. And so making sure you've got great conversion tracking, making sure things like phone calls are set up, leads are set up, even for our B2B e-com clients, form leads and conversions really matter. Then we look at things like, B2C clients, phone calls sometimes matter, because sometimes they will sell things over the phone, because, older audiences don't always want to fill things out online. And so making sure you've got your conversion tracking set up is really, really important. Now, the other thing I think about is I still love the search term report. Now, yes, the search term report is not as good as it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 19 years ago when I started the industry, but I rather some data than no data, because Google could have pulled like a PMAX and just taken away the search term report 100%. Then what would we do? So some data is better than no data. And the reason I think that is when you look at brands like this furniture brand we audited, they were spending a lot of money on things they don't sell. So like recliner chairs, zero gravity chairs. And though they got a few conversions for their massage chair that they did sell, if we didn't have things like the search term report, we wouldn't realize that they are spending money in places they don't want. And then the other thing I think about is like, if you're running PMAX, and I know some people love PMAX, I know some people hate PMAX, you've got search insights, obviously, where Google will tell you buckets of searches that are related to what you sell. I think it's still helpful to look at that to get an idea of where you're going search-wise. If you've seen things you don't love, Google still has search themes. I think a lot of people sleep on search themes, even though it's a great way to help guide and direct your PMAX campaign and tell Google, I kind of want to show up for searches around these things. You could even do your brand name or competitors, hint, hint. And then Google did say as of end of last month that search term report is going to come to PMAX. So if you don't have it in your ad account yet, it's hopefully going to roll out, in the coming months. And by summer, hopefully you'll have it. Or if you're in ecom, hopefully have it before Q4. So I still have the search term report because now it's coming to PMAX, and that is a great thing in my book. SKU breakdown. Now, if you're in ecom, D2C, retail, whatever, you sell things on your website. The thing that I always see is sometimes people put too many SKUs in a campaign. And so let's say they've got like 1,000 SKUs on their site. They might set up one campaign for like $50 a day or $100 a day. And then they put all 1,000 SKUs in that one campaign. And then just like let it run. And the challenge with that is Google's really bad at budget distribution. It's really bad at taking your $100 and spreading it across all those SKUs, because in one case, there's too many SKUs in that campaign. But even if there wasn't, Google, like Meta, will often say and pick a winning SKU and then dump all your money in that winning SKU. And so one thing ad accounts need to think about, people who run them, is making sure you balance the number of SKUs in your campaign with the budget for those SKUs. Because if you've got too many SKUs and too little budget, you're just going to be like a car stuck in mud. You're going to spin your wheels and not get somewhere fast. And here's a good example if that happened. We audited an EV brand last year. They had 55 different brands, and they had a lot of brands in their wedding campaign. So we saw Google spend a lot of money on 3 top brands, but then these other 55 brands had, $10 here, $20 there, $40 there. And if that brand had taken that $881 and put it in those top 3 brands, they would not only make more money, but also be more profitable. And so really understanding how you distribute your budget across your SKUs and your product categories and your brands is going to lead to more success. We see this all the time in ad accounts. And that's probably the one offense I see that makes me just shake my head, because it's an easy thing to solve if you just spend time looking at where your money's going in the ad account and breaking down your ad account and your campaigns based on the different attributes in your shopping feed. So some other examples. So I don't think AI is the biggest opportunity in our industry. I think your mobile conversion rate is the biggest opportunity you have right now, because yesterday, last week, last month, last year, your site was probably bleeding money because your mobile conversion rate was way worse than it was on desktop. All things being equal. I have some exceptions there. And so we look at this example here, we see that the mobile conversion rate is about half of what it is versus the computer, even though the client generally has a cheaper CPA and a better ROAS. And so in this case, I say, well, if we can improve a mobile conversion rate, your CPA would go down even more and your ROAS would improve. Now, obviously, there's examples where that's the opposite in that case, i.e. your mobile conversion rate is still really bad. And then at times you still see your CPA being really good, but then you see your ROAS be really, really bad. And so if you improve your mobile conversion rate, obviously your CPA would get even better, but then your ROAS would get better and you'd be more profitable. We've seen examples where people have 90% of their ad spend going to mobile devices. And so when your mobile conversion rate is half of what it is on desktop and you're spending 90% of your budget on mobile, if you don't improve your mobile conversion rate right now for your peak season that's going to come up in the summer, in the spring, in Q4, you're asking to lose money and not be as profitable as a business. Don't spend more money on email. Don't spend more money on SEO. Don't spend more money on paid ads. Fix your mobile conversion rate. So tips, tricks, and reports and things I look at so I don't go over time. If you don't follow Mike Ryan, if you're still on Twitter or X or whatever, he shares lots of great data around like ad accounts, what he's seeing. So I'd say follow him. He's worth following. Things we look at is like breaking things down by day of the week. Google says it does a good job of distributing your budget, across different metrics and things, but I still look at day of the week to make sure that we're not spending money in a day of the week where it spends lots of money but doesn't get lots of conversions, i.e. we have a B2B dental client. They don't do as well on weekends. We may want to tweak things if we can with the bid strategy we're using to make sure that we're not pulling our cash on weekends when people don't really shop or buy. I like to break things down by network. It's probably the second thing I do after conversion tracking, because you'll be shocked how many people leave on display network, sometimes search partners, and sometimes those things do spend lots of money. I think it's the easiest way to make sure you're not spending money in places you don't want, but you'll be shocked how many people don't actually do it. And then reports. Now, I think Google Ads has a great reports section. I like using the reports section, but lots of people just don't ever build reports. I think it's easier to look at the report in the report section than sometimes pull something up in the actual campaign. Plus, using the reports, you can say you want to aggregate data from multiple campaigns, which is really cool. You can do things by product title. So if you've got a really well-built product type or any of the attributes in your shopping feed, you can build things out and see where you're spending money based on different levels of your product type, which is really cool. Again, I think it's easier to look at this than look at it inside your campaigns and Google Ads. Location is really helpful, because if you're like a B2B ecom brand who told your agency to only target America, but they heard take away America, and then you spent lots of money in like parts of Asia, Ghana, India, and spent thousands of dollars every day in countries you don't service, having the reports thing based on location helps you quickly see where you're spending money in the campaign. And so I said it earlier, which is kind of giving away the end of my talk, but I actually don't think that AI is our biggest opportunity. I think AI, from an opportunity perspective, is probably still another 2-ish years away, maybe 3 years away. Because if you think about it, we used to say the year of mobile since 2007, 2008, when the iPhone came out. But I think the year of mobile only really happened the last couple of years, because not only do we have the traffic coming from mobile, but now we have the revenue and the conversions coming to mobile. And so I think the way we can see AI be helpful and help us make more money is still 2 or 3 years away. I think our biggest opportunity is really just fixing our mobile UX or mobile CRO or mobile conversion rate and building better shopping feeds. And the reason I think that is because these are things you can do today, right? They're things you can look at your website, figure out how to fix it, close your pop-ups, make your text slightly bigger, maybe reorganize things on your mobile layout versus how it shows up on desktop, and help that build a better conversion rate, which then means that basically at the end of the day, you're going to have things convert more. You can talk about AI, you can wax poetically about AI, but the impact of AI on your business is very small compared to you fixing your mobile site and or having a better shopping feed. And that's basically my talk. The last thing I want to say basically is I do a salary survey every year. So if you are an employee or you own an agency like me and you want to know what do other people make, half our data from the 800 responses is America, but Canada, UK, Europe are also well represented. It's not scientifically significant, but I think some data on what people make is better than no data, so that if you're an employee, you can advocate for more money. We use it for our own team. And if you own an agency, you can make sure you're paying your people well. Which is a good thing. So just follow the bit.ly link. It'll take you to the Reddit thread where you collect all the data. And then hopefully that helps you negotiate salaries this year, because even though it's going to be a hard year, theoretically where you work should give you a raise. It's a nice thing to do. And that's the end of my talk. I've spoken a lot of places. I traveled a lot of places. I love to travel. I'd kill for a travel client of some kind, but that just has never come through. And that's it. I'm done.
Thank you so much, Duane, for sharing your unique perspective and insights with us in the zone. And thank you as well for the PPC salary survey. We have a comment here from Miriam. It's such a helpful service you provide for our industry. So thank you. All right, if you would like to connect with Duane Brown, you can find him on LinkedIn. You can also find him very actively on Reddit. And if you have a question for Duane, go ahead and type it into the chat if you're watching this live on YouTube or LinkedIn right now, as we're about to get started with our live panel. For those just joining us, this is PPC Zone, April 2025, and we have talked about full funnel paid ads. I'm your host, Jyll Saskin Gales. I'm a Google Ads coach, ex-Googler, and the founder of the Inside Google Ads course, podcast, and book. I created this event to elevate new perspectives and insights in our industry. I'm here with John Greenhow, who is the founder of Clicked.ca, and he just spoke about the lead generation equation. I'm here with Marjorie Vizethann, who is the CEO and co-founder of Alpine Analytics, and she just spoke about full funnel strategy. And I'm here with Duane Brown, founder of Take Some Risk, who just spoke about Google Ads audits for e-com. Wow. One of the things I loved about the various talks today is we got to hear about lead generation, we got to hear about e-commerce, and a common theme I heard across a lot of your talks is there are these very simple, quick win, easy things you can do that can have a really outsized impact on results. And so I'd love to hear from each of you when you're either auditing an account or opening a new account for the first time. I know Duane alluded to this bit, but like, what's one of the first things you like to check in a Google Ads account to find a quick win opportunity for improvement? Maybe I'll start with you, Duane, since you were just speaking about some of those.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I look at a lot of the things that I talked about in my talk. So I'll look at breaking things down by like the different networks. I'll look at day of the week. I'll double check the conversion track that actually works, whether it's people who've got 2 primary conversions, whether people have things firing on a page that isn't actually a purchase. So conversion tracking makes a lot of sense. And then looking at just how clients are spending money, like where they're spending money is really helpful. And then sometimes pulling reports to figure out like, if a client's got, in my example was 1,000 SKUs, like what's their hero product? What's their top product? Are we spending money on that product? Example I always give, well, not always, but example I give now is a couple of years ago, we talked like a soap brand. So they sold like a soap bar and then like a shampoo bar. So you can buy your shampoo in a bar versus getting a bottle. And the client was like, how do we make more money? And I'm like, well, spend more money in your top 2 products versus trying to spend money on everything. And that was like an easy way for them to double down on what they do really well, which is sell bars of soap and shampoo, but also make more money. I think sometimes both people in-house and at brands and agencies and stuff get the idea that we have to take our budget and then spend it on like every SKU that we have under the sun. And like, just like keywords, you can't spend all your budget on every keyword you want to bid on. You got to pick your best shot opportunity based on the budget you have.
Got it. So just looking at the data in different ways to see these insights by network or by SKU or whatever it might be. What about you, Marjorie? When you're diving into account, what's one of the first things you like to look for or check to improve performance?
A lot of things that Duane already said. He touched on this in his presentation. It's not as great as it used to be, but search term report can be a gold mine for wasted spend. So that's one of my first go-tos, conversion tracking, obviously. And then kind of going beyond though, just in platform, I took over an account a year ago. It was actually a nutrition coaching company, very similar to the one that example I showed in my presentation. And I could tell that the agency that had been running the account, they knew paid search well. Like they had tested all kinds of different sophisticated campaigns. Like they knew their stuff when it came to PPC, but what they missed is a full understanding of the client itself and their target customer, and their product lines overlapped. And so it was really just going back to the fundamentals of understanding like, okay, how do we negate some of this product overlap with exclusions and negative keywords, and just some things that seem sort of like foundational and almost elementary compared to some of the like sophisticated stuff I could tell that they'd done, but was so critical that it was missed that it just led to poor performance. So none of that sort of advanced stuff ended up really mattering because they missed the really critical foundational pieces that everything else should have been built on.
It's so common, right? We all want to be so advanced and tricks and hacks and scripts and AI, and then we miss the basic fundamentals of the account, which ties in well to what you were talking about, John, that you can do all kinds of stuff in the account, but if you're not prepared to actually take all that traffic and do something valuable with it, you're going to lose. So from your perspective, what are some of the things you like to look at first when you're opening up a new Google Ads account? Do you get the opportunity to dive into those pieces of the funnel?
The offline conversion side of things, the post-click conversions, it's always something I ask for, is like CRM access, even when I'm auditing an account, because I think it's just that important. This is maybe a little bit crass, but it's like the PPC side of stuff is the raw material, and then we end up putting that through this very human process that is the sales process. So I don't think that the PPC manager is necessarily solely responsible for all of that, but we need to look at, you can deliver the best campaign that you possibly can, but if it needs to turn into something throughout that customer journey. So I think they both need to be represented from lead gen at any rate when we're looking at accounts. I don't have anything revolutionary probably in terms of what I look at from an actual account perspective, but I really think it's sensible to look at account structure as a starting place. I totally agree with Duane in terms of looking at conversions first, and then I would look at account structure to look at, is this sort of in line with what I'm expecting from like a modern PPC account? How many keywords are represented in ad groups? Is this something that is sort of a bygone era of structure, or is this a current strategy? And can I make understanding about the customer journey from how the account is set up? Because I should be able to do that. It should be logical.
And are we still seeing broad match modifier or ETAs running, right?
Yeah, let's watch for that.
Now, Marjorie, in your talk, you spoke a lot about demand gen, and Brian mentioned here that full funnel is really about considering every potential part of that customer journey. So demand gen is our newest campaign type in Google Ads. It dethroned PMAX, and I think it's still a mystery to a lot of people. And so I'd love for you to share either some tips you have for PPC practitioners who haven't been brave enough perhaps to quite try demand gen yet, or perhaps some little tips and mistakes to avoid. What would you share with someone who wants to test demand gen but hasn't yet?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'm personally leaning heavily into demand gen for our clients, and in the new channel breakout beta, it's in beta technically. It hasn't been out very long. I'm not sure if it's even out on every single account yet. It is present in most of our client accounts. So I'm pretty excited about that. I've been in this industry for 20 years. I'm kind of like an OG paid search gal. And so I grew up in the days of like, you and your Excel macros and like a will or survive, building out like every variation with like every piece of control possible. Like I grew up in that world. And so of course I've had to let go of a lot of that, but I do like the control that these sort of channel breakouts give us. And so what I like about it is I'm able at a ad group level in demand gen to say, okay, well, I want to build going back to my presentation, I want to build a separate Google Discover campaign because I have a campaign specific goal that only makes sense potentially for that campaign type or that funnel stage, right? But then at the ad group level, I can build a custom audience. I can do a lookalike, demographic targeting, in-market affinity. Like there's all kinds of really cool things. So you get the placement, the audience, and the creative control at the ad group level. And that is something that I'm just really excited about.
It is very exciting. I agree. Duane, we had a question for you here from Miriam, who asked, do you use any Google Ads scripts for your audits?
Yeah, we don't use any scripts for our audits. We do use scripts and accounts. Sometimes we might use like a budget delivery script, so we don't over budget if clients are very budget conscious, or we might use like negative keyword conflict script, because if you have a large account with lots of keywords, you might forget like what's in your keywords, what's in your negative keywords. But we don't use any scripts for audits. We really just look at like the ad account, build some Google Ad reports that we have sort of standardized that we can quickly look up. And then other than that, we use, we have supermetrics. We use supermetrics to pull data into a Google Sheet. We've got some templates that we've built in our templates folder in Google Drive that we use. I've heard over the years people talking about using scripts to audit reports, but really at the end of the day, all they'd use a script to do is just pull data at the end of the day. And so as long as you can pull the data, whether it's downloaded as a CSV or use supermetrics or data slayer or whatever, I think you're fine.
And I'm curious for everyone here, because I believe everyone here is either a freelancer or runs an agency. Do you charge for a Google Ads audit, and why or why not? Maybe I'll start with Duane. Do you charge for an audit, and why yes or no?
Yeah, we charge for audits. We did our two biggest last year with $10K each, which I asked me 5 years ago, would I think I could charge someone $10K for an audit? I'll tell you no. But we have other audits where like a brand comes to us and maybe they spent $50,000 of the last year. We might charge them like $3,000, which is our base. The big reason I charge is two things. If everyone's doing for free, nobody values it, right? Like if you're getting it for free, there's no value. And so for my perspective, if I say we're different as an agency, then I have to have the actions to back that up. And part of that is charge them for the audit at the end of the day, because I think an audit is a strategic document that gives you the roadmap of what you could do or things you could fix. We started charging, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, and I haven't looked back. We don't even do like free audits when we want to like potentially win business. It's like hire us or don't. You want us to do an audit? Pay us, and then we'll tell you what we think. We lose some people, but it's people who just want to get free audits from every agency. And I'm like, well, I don't know why I want to be like the 100 other agencies out there.
Interesting. What about you, John? Do you charge for audits, and why or why not?
I do. I do because they're time consuming and they're valuable. So that's it,
There
plain
you
and
go.
simple. It's just a matter of valuing my own time. And I think that you're paying for expertise, and that expertise, to Duane's point, is it's a strategic document. It's intended to be useful and thorough, and it's valuable.
What about you, Marjorie? Do you charge for audits, and why or why not?
I've evolved my thinking on this. So I kind of grew up in a large agency world where I was sometimes part of an RFP process and pitch team, which was very intensive and very laborious. And that was sort of, so like I kind of grew up, if you will, with the mentality that was acceptable and to be expected to kind of win these, like, these were like Fortune 500 accounts, right? And that was just kind of how it was done then. So I kind of, with that experience, went into it with the mindset of, yeah, I can give a free audit and, build their trust and get under the hood. But now I've evolved in my thinking, and I'm more in Duane and John's ballpark, where it's kind of like, you know what, I wouldn't expect my accountant to do my taxes for free, or my doctor to like give me a prescription without, me paying to visit him in the office. And so, of course, like, that's maybe not the best comparison, but I mean, we still have, worked hard to have expertise in this like sort of complex field. And so I think that we should be valued. Our expertise should be valued.
Absolutely. And I charge for audits as well. Similar reasons for me as well, as like I don't manage campaigns for people. I'm not an agency. So for me, the audit is a standalone service someone's requesting. And then I would say maybe like a third of the time they become a coaching client after that. And 2/3 of the time they don't. And I refer them on to someone else, which works well for me as well. So before we wrap up today, I had one more question I wanted to ask John. You spoke a lot about, that post-click experience and having to work in partnership with sales. And I would imagine at some companies, the sales team is very open to talking to the marketer. And at other companies, they are very not open to talking to the marketer. So for someone who listened to your talk today and thought, that's a great idea, I should talk to my client's sales team, what advice would you have for them about opening up and starting that relationship?
Exactly as you said, it's a relationship. I wouldn't come in hot, basically. I think it's about building trust. I think it's not about coming in with immediate criticisms and points to change or whatever. So first of all, it's like, try to understand why things are being done a certain way. I presented thresholds and benchmarks and whatever. And I think if you lead with that, then it can become very adversarial or combative or defensive very quickly. Try to understand, let's all work with a set of facts first. So let's make sure data collection is set up. I'm going backwards a little bit, but a really key problem actually is not like, are they hitting threshold? It's, are people using a CRM? So that might be a place to start, is making sure everyone's using it consistently and effectively across the team so that you can actually trust data. And then once data is being seen, and is being seen consistently and by all the stakeholders, meaning marketing and sales, then it's much easier to start having more constructive conversations, because the data will start to paint the picture for you. You don't need just to come in and browbeat people with it. I think it's really about communication and like a consistent tempo of communication. And then usually everybody gets on the same page pretty quickly, because everyone ultimately has the same goal. It's not usually a misalignment of goals. It can just be, obviously nobody likes to get blamed for poor performance, and that's a great way, I think, to steer around that mess.
Well, our time today is almost up. Thank you once again to John, Marjorie, Duane, and you watching or listening right now for joining us today at PPC Zone April 2025. Our next event will be in June. If you would like to apply to speak at an upcoming PPC Zone, you can do so on our website. That's ppc.zone. I'm your host, Jyll Saskin Gales. You can follow me on LinkedIn to stay up to date on future events, and you can buy my new book, Inside Google Ads, on Amazon. Thank you for supporting our mission to elevate new perspectives and insights in our industry. I look forward to seeing you next time in the zone.